So now you have all of these Power 5 schools in football. There's an opportunity to become a majority owner. What do you think Texas football goes for on the open market? What do you think Alabama football goes for on the open market?
In the wake of the recent House settlement in college sports, we talk about the impact the agreement will have on athletic departments. But you actually have an agenda now. Your agenda is to win, obviously, but it's also to generate as much money as you possibly can. We then put on our ZombieAD hats and come up with some off-the-wall solutions.
Let's get crazy for a second. Let's just get crazy. Let's figure out how to generate new revenue streams. More than just nickel and diming the smaller departmental jobs. Let's talk about this. I think first on our list is we know who we're making a call to. We're calling up some of those Saudi princes.
We are. And Barca is up to his ears about job postings. Can they really be serious?
Just say the quiet part out loud. You'll work 24/7, have no boundaries, and smile while doing it. Or we'll replace you with someone who will.
Episode 7, here we go. Andale. This is the true story of two washed-up sports guys who chased the dream. Private flights, championship rings, running sideline to sideline on per diem and adrenaline.
We gave our 20s and our 30s to the industry, pulled off miracles that were never in the job description. In return, low pay, long hours, and we still got cut from the team.
This is about what really happens behind the badge. The burnout, the bad bosses, the dream job that didn't love you back, but also the lifelong friendships, the chaos, the holy shit stories you couldn't make up. And somehow, despite everything, you'd still do parts of it all over again.
This is one for the ones who lived it, loved it, hated it, and still kind of miss it. For everyone who's ever asked, how in the hell did we survive that? We're two former sports insiders with more than 40 years of experience and more than enough scars to make fun of it all.
And just enough trauma to start a podcast instead of going to therapy.
I'm Brandon Barca.
And I'm Andy Boggs.
And this is No Longer Credentialed. We once had access, now we have opinions.
Podcast. You get it.
Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of No Longer Credentialed. I'm Brandon Barco here with my partner in crime, Andy Boggs. And we're just going to drop everything and go right to it. The hottest topic right now in college sports is the House versus the NCAA settlement that happened recently. And let's be real here. Shit is about to hit the fan. What does this all mean? What's the potential fallout for our comrades working in sports? Shit is about to hit the fan, and we are declaring a state of emergency. This could directly affect hundreds of staffers per athletic department. While the national media right now is focused on the teams and how it affects the coaches and the budget and the structure of college athletics, no one is talking about the people behind the scenes that this is going to impact. Let's start with this. Where are athletic departments going to find $20.5 million in their budget? Money sure as hell doesn't grow on trees, not even at Power 5 schools like we'll talk about at Michigan. Michigan, of all places. Something has to give, and unfortunately, it might be at the expense of the underpaid and the overworked people that we truly love. Let's get into some specifics, Boggs.
Yeah, so just to recap, so this settlement has been granted final approval, has been touted as a means of restoring order to this big money era of college sports. Starting this summer, Power 4 and other Division I schools can begin directly paying their athletes via an annual revenue sharing pool capped at roughly $20.5 million per school in year one. And it goes into effect July 1st and covers every sport under a school's athletic department. The most prominent football programs expect to have about $15 million of that pool at their disposal, with top programs supplementing that budget with third-party, quote, over-the-cap, unquote, NIL deals. So for the last probably couple months, maybe years, schools have been bracing for this financial reckoning that this settlement will bring, including where the revenue share money will come from and how it will be distributed. College athletics have been trending in this direction, and to the benefit of most athletes, particularly those in revenue sports, who will receive a bigger cut of the billions in television sponsorship and ticket revenues that pour into power conference athletic departments. So, but then you get into, so there's going to be a clearinghouse by Deloitte called NIL Go, and they're going to monitor all of these NIL deals over $600. So if a school makes a deal with a player for an NIL deal, they have to report it to this clearinghouse. Is it going to really work? How are you going to monitor it? How are things going to be enforced? You know, The Athletic had a great piece on this, and one source was just outright dismissive, saying if you tell a booster or business owner they can't give a star player $2 million, there will be lawsuits. There's no enforcing this. Fair market value? F Deloitte. This is going to get even crazier. Barca, why don't you talk about Michigan? This really is an incredible story because we're not talking about a $50 million athletic budget here. We're talking probably $150 to $200 million athletic budget, and they're having to make cuts and deal with the reckoning of this settlement.
If you're driving to work with kids in the car right now, like they said in the movie Old School, Vince Vaughn, might as well put your earmuffs on, because this article on Michigan and the cuts they are beginning to make is a red fucking flag. And in this article, Michigan, their AD is already announcing that the athletic department is planning a 10% reduction of staff following the House settlement. This is Michigan, the big house, of all places, multi-$100 million budget. So while this settlement also caps roster limits, it allows schools now to fund unlimited scholarships. Let's take Michigan, for example, in this article. They plan to add 82.1 new scholarships across 19 sports this fall at a cost of roughly $6.2 million. So again, some of the things directly related to the staff that Manuel said that they would look at cutting. He said athletics has committed $10 million in budget cuts for the coming year through adjustments to its travel policy and not filling selected jobs when they become vacant. Again, red fucking flag. Highlight that one right there. Not filling selected jobs when they become vacant. I'm going to be honest with you. As you said earlier, Boggs, I know for a fact schools have been planning for this for months or a half year of what this $20 million payout is going to be. It's been no secret. And I've actually seen middle management level people leave in positions that have not been filled so far. This is just the start. Manuel adds in this article that over time, Michigan's athletic department will gradually decline in numbers through two methods: attrition, with a long-term goal of 10% reduction in total staff, and through a stricter approval process for new hires. Double red flag.
What does that mean?
Are you kidding me? What is going on? It means two things. Hey, look, hires are going to gradually decline, and if we're going to bring anybody new on staff, there better sure as hell be a very good reason on what value that's bringing to either the team winning or revenue to the department. And you know what I'll also say? 10% reduction. 10% reduction? My ass. That's what they're saying right now, not to scare off an entire department, 1 out of 10 people. It's going to be bigger than that at some of these places. I don't know that for a fact, but you can sort of read between the lines here. It's not just 10%. And you know what? They sure as hell aren't going to take this money from the coaches or the players or the things that benefit the team winning. And I get it. With the fans, that's what the fans want at the end of the day. And the ADs aren't going to be doing things that take away from what they need day in and day out. So who does that leave on the short end of the stick? Our peers in college sports, wake up and smell the CO2 tanks.
Yep. Yeah, Barca, one thing I want to pipe up here, and one thing that that article mentioned and made so much sense is there's going to be a lot of acrimony between programs in an athletic department. I mean, we kind of saw it a little bit where, you know, certain programs didn't like certain other programs because they got more money than them, or they didn't deserve to get the money, but they did. And think about stuff now. Think about, you're going to have a football program that's going to have $15 million worth of salary on their team. And what's that going to do to the basketball coach or the women's basketball coach or to the star women's basketball player who's got 5 million followers on Instagram? I mean, it's just going to cause a lot of problems, don't you think?
The dysfunction is going to be everywhere. It's causing problem. It'll cause problems everywhere. I think it creates a moment for an AD now essentially to grab more power back, some additional power. As we've had combos off air, you know, these departments are now going to become strictly businesses. Long gone are going to be the days of hiring the old coach that won national titles to oversee a department and shake hands and kiss babies, right?
Yeah. I mean, I would think that you would need to have someone in their big red chair that when they put their 2 feet on the floor in the morning, they are thinking about how in the world am I going to generate more money for this department? How am I going to do it? Is that going to be through, because they can negotiate NIL deals now, right? So do you charge your multimedia rights people like, hey, let's really start trying to get these players on NIL deals? Or what kind of cuts am scheduling going to have to get switched up? And I mean, there's just so many things that are going to be, it's going to be just a complete shit show, at least for the next year, until people kind of could get their bearings and figure out what in the world are we going to do. I mean, that's a lot. I mean, that $20.5 million is this year. It's going to keep going up. It's going to be $22 million in 2030. It's going to be $25 million in 2032. I mean, at the end of the day, I think we've talked about this. I think athletic departments are going to have to become businesses, and they're going to have to kind of face to the facts that, internally you have to treat people differently. Like the quarterback on the football team is different than the cross country runner. It just is. And you're going to have to treat people that way. And there's going to be some hard discussions between ADs and Olympic sports coaches and basketball coaches and women's basketball coaches. It's just going to be a really, really tough time just to try to make that revenue up. If Michigan is making cuts, what's that going to do to the Dukes and Northwesterns and Vanderbilts and Stanfords? And I mean, they got to pay that money too. I mean, maybe they just have a big donor stroke them a check for $20.5 million. I don't know. Maybe that's what they do, but I kind of find that kind of doubtful. So it's a wild time, man.
Yeah, I think this is going to be an opportunity. This is an opportunity for an AD to rein some things back in on power, whereas typically the coaches are the most powerful people on campus. And they can go back to any of these Olympic coaches now and actually just say like, hey, this is a business now, and we're sharing our revenue with athletes, and the budget's the bottom line, and what's generating revenue and what's not. It's a cold, heartless world out there. And so they're going to be tough discussions, but I think it gives them more of a level foundation now to say those things. Like, I think you're going to start seeing, ADs take back some more of the things, and we can get into more of those things later on, like potentially scheduling or, travel, or all of those things right now that are going to be affecting the business moving forward. I think about, what does this all mean? Where does it all go? That's a really loaded question right now.
It's very loaded because, I mean, they don't even know. So how would we know? But, it could lead to some really crazy things, and we can talk about that. But it is a chance for ADs to kind of rein coaches in. And I mean, we've been around programs just really had a blank check. They could just kind of do whatever. And I think those days are over. And, they're going to have to really look at their budgets with a fine-tooth comb. And I don't know how many places have been doing that. Again, it's a business, right? It's transformed overnight into, this is now a business. We need to treat this like a business. How are we going to make revenue? How are we going to get more customers to come to our games? How are we going to sell more tickets? We need to be, more active in doing all these things. I hate to say this, but it's just not about the student-athlete experience. The student-athlete experience is going to be how much money they're getting from the NIL. And it's not going to be about, whether they take a trip to, wherever for team building. Like, I just don't, sleeper buses
and all this extra snacks and all these things.
I think that stuff's gone.
Like, you're getting paid now, you're a professional. And I kind of break it down in two buckets if I'm looking at it from an AD's perspective. And I'm sure it's more buckets, but just going to generalize it here is like, one, what are the quick cost cuts that we can make? And where is that coming from? We're talking about smaller costs that are drop in the overall bucket. That's going to be the staffing. That's going to be like, do we really need 10, 12 comms people or content creators or all of these different things that may not directly generate revenue? Like Michigan's already saying, 10% of staff, that's slowly going to be phased out. That's the easy cut. Then the second one is evaluating what are the major chunks of things that we're paying for. We can get into the discussion on excess expenditures that have just taken over sports in the last 20 years. We see these massive football staffs and just all of these different things that have been done as these sports have just become just these major TV deals have come in, and just all of this spending. You mentioned it. It's like these team bonding trips. I can think of Olympic sports teams that go to Asia. Like, great, it's the student athlete experience, but at what point now does stuff like that stop? Because, we may be spending $500,000 on something
Yeah.
like that. ADs are going to have to sit back and think like, okay, what is it that we're really trying to do here? And things are going to change. And so you're going to have the initial wave. I have a feeling these departments kind of already know. They've already sat down and said, these senior leaders are like, hey, each department, what can we start cutting?
Yeah.
And then they're going to look at the bigger picture with teams and coaches. And granted, you're not going to want to do anything crazy there because guess what? Coaches and players need whatever they can to win, which then gives an AD job security. And the coaches and the ADs still want to be sailing on their yachts.
They do.
Having a great time and doing whatever it takes to secure their job security. And on top of that, that means good things for fans. I mean, sports are for fans, right? And so that's a win-win for all. But there's a lot of loose ends here that are going to impact what I would call like, the little people of the business. People we grew up working with for over 20 years that really are going to be in a could be in a very tough spot here in the near future.
I think so too. I think if you're not affiliated with generating revenue, I would probably be sweating a little bit. I know you want to have academic people around, but do you need 10 of them? Can you do with 8 of them or 7 of them? If you're an Olympic sport that doesn't generate revenue, can we take an ops person and work with 3 different sports instead of just 1? I mean, how can we do that? How can we make some cuts and still make it somewhat palatable for you to have a competitive team? I mean, these Olympic sports have grown in staffs. I mean, even basketball's grown now. You can have 4 full-time assistants, and they have all these video people, and I mean, they're like NBA staffs. And back in the day, I hate to be this way, go high school Harry, but I mean, it wasn't that way. I mean, you had 4 people on a staff. You had a couple of managers who would help with some of the coaching stuff, and that was it. Things are just different now, and then you just have to kind of find a sweet spot to what's going to make it work. But it'd be interesting to see when you hire a new coach and he comes in and says, this is the kind of staff I want to have. Our AD's going to push back. I mean, in the past, they haven't. They just gave him a blank check and decided to, trust the coach's better instincts on how they were going to hire people and how much they were going to pay them. And I got to think I'm looking over that with a fine-tooth comb now if I'm an AD. Like, I want a structure and I want to see it. We got to keep this thing lean and mean. Can places do that right now? I don't know.
I think an AD can take it to the coach and say, this is the budget we're working with. What's the most important to you? What are your main needs? And that's where coaches in some cases are going to have to determine like, hey, the recruiting game is different now. Maybe we don't need to send 100 DMs a day to 100 different people. Maybe we don't need all of these specific graphics and hype videos and all of those things. And not to call that out specifically, but I'm thinking of things of like, hey, if I can have that content or those assets versus that direct money to pay players now that they can do it directly, what do you think a coach is going to take? What do you think is going to be on the cutting block?
Yeah. And I think just in our business, the people who have kind of innovated on content creation and monetized it, I think those people are in pretty good shape. There's been a few places around the country that have done that, have done it really, really well. I think their seat at the table is probably a little bit bigger than somebody who hasn't done any of that. It's also a question, we talked about this, and whether or not our athletic departments, would they take on a little bit more money now to make money in 5 years? I don't know. The smart ones will. Yeah, to streamline your stuff and hey, in 5 years I can make this money doing this that I'm not making now. If I spent $20,000 now, can I make $100,000 in 2 years or 3 years? I don't know. I mean, these are all questions. Like, if you've been proactive in the last 5 years, I think you're going to be in better shape than you are someone just kind of, waiting to see how everything's going to happen. And there's quite a few places out there where people have just waited and now they're screwed.
For sure. And we don't know what's going to happen this next year with all this legislation and things, additional lawsuits that are coming out. We saw right before we got on here that there's a new lawsuit related to all of this House settlement in regards to Title IX. And so it's going to continue to be kind of crazy just to see everything continue to play out over the next year. But from an AD's perspective, again, going back to excess expenditures in college sports, I think the bigger bucket is, where are we spending a shitload of money? right now that needs to change or may not affect the current climate of having to pay players. So I think of, first of all, I think of the facility arms race. This was an important thing when we were working in
Right.
college sports for 20 years each. It was, you saw all of these schools, the Alabamas and Texases, and all of them basically like who can have the coolest locker room or player facility or just all the bells and whistles. And you start thinking about it now, how important actually is the bottom line of how much they're enjoying being on campus? Because what I'm seeing, at least in NILs, and again, these deals can change and maybe there'll be contracts, is players are jumping where the money is and where the playing time is. So I think we might be seeing the end of the facilities arm race, the arms race of the past. And so I think of a school near and dear to my heart, one pretty close here, and a school that's had to compete against the big dogs in the conference, trying to keep up with the Joneses. And they've done some major campaigns here in the last year or two that finally got approved, that probably had been worked on for the last 20 years just to keep up with everything. And now they have an upgraded stadium and a world-class facility for basketball only next to their arena. And you start thinking about some of those capital projects maybe costing maybe $500 million or more. I don't know what the final number is. But you start thinking about stuff like that. And now you're thinking like, wait a second, can we rewind maybe 2 years? This stuff's all great, but money especially doesn't grow on trees here at some of these academic institutions. Like, can we have that money back based on the state of the climate now in athletics? And so you think about that and you're like, man, you got to go back to the table now and figure out, okay, where's this $20.5 million going to come from? We're trying to scrape up enough money to keep from paying fines for fans rushing the court in football and basketball for $500,000 fines is what they're going to be this year. And so you start thinking about that, and it's like, there are definitely going to be cuts across the board. And so the facility arms race is of the past.
Yeah, I think kids would dress in a broom closet if they're getting paid. Seriously, $3 million, they would. They're getting $3 million a year. Like, I don't think they give two craps where they're gonna dress and whether or not they have USB ports at their locker room, at their locker.
It's like Christmas. Would you rather have your parents wrap up presents when you get to a certain age or teenage years and be like, here's $1,000 worth of presents under the tree? Or would you like them just to say, let me just cut you the check?
Yeah.
And what do you think most kids that age are going to do? That teen, high school age,
just give me the money.
Just give me the money.
And it's just kind of comical that it's taken that long to get their facilities, and when it finally does happen, they don't even really need them, and the money could go somewhere else. It's it's pretty funny, but yeah, those are decisions that ADs are making right now. It's being an AD was hard 5 years ago. I just can't even imagine being an AD right now. I mean, I guess people are saying there's going to be more structure now, and this NIL Go thing is going to keep cheating from happening, and this canoe commission is going to enforce all. But I still don't think any of that stuff holds up in a court of law. So I still think, and people are still going to make NIL deals off the cuff. I mean, they're still going to be done under the table. So it's still all a joke. The whole thing is a joke. And until there's bargaining, there's still going to be lawsuits. They're going to try to go to the federal government and get legislation and antitrust stuff and all that. The elephant in the room is still the fact that they need to be bargaining with their players. And it's just not, they just doesn't even enter into their thoughts. I'm sure it does, but they cringe every time it does. But honestly, it's the only way this stuff's going to go away. It's going to keep being madness. It just is. If you're a lawyer right now, what's that number we saw, Barca? It was like it's like over $700 million, I think, plaintiff lawyers have made in this. $700 million, dude. $700 million.
Insane.
And hey, if you're a lawyer in this space, dude, you're like, keep the chaos coming. Keep it coming. It's
Get money.
Sponsored by.
We'd like to thank our sponsors for contributing to our budget. which can't be cut because 0 is as low as it goes.
Today's episode is sponsored by Golden Parachute, the only executive comfort service built for athletic directors navigating turbulent financial times. With the House settlement approved, departments are trimming staff and slashing budgets. But one person's salary? Sure, the AD will take a symbolic pay cut, might even pretend to get a little choked up at the all-staff meeting. But don't worry, the contract extension, the retention bonus, and the buyout clause, all still safe and sound. Golden Parachute, because when it's time to do more with less, they're still walking away with more.
We're also brought to you by Extra Strength Shit Outta Luck, the over-the-counter drug made specifically for sports staffers trying to survive the House settlement fallout. For migraines, like when you realize exactly where all the money in college sports is going, for joint pain, from doing the work of 5 people while still getting lectured on budget discipline, Extra Strength Shit Outta Luck, because no matter what happens, your reward will be more work. Ask your doctor if Extra Strength Shit Outta Luck is right for you. Side effects may include updating your resume at 2 a.m., searching jobs outside of sports, and spontaneous sobbing in the marketing storage closet that hasn't been cleaned out in 4 years. Dude,
Never
that
clean
is
out that marketing
awesome,
closet, man. We just throw stuff in there.
Throw it in.
We just throw stuff in there and
Throw
it just
it
piles
in.
up. I think there's still probably a couple of interns still probably
That's right.
living in there from like 8 years ago. And I think some of the other points we made in excess spending and things for ADs to evaluate, and this is just a couple things, this isn't everything, but you start thinking about game scheduling in the future, having more home games than road games, as we're seeing with Michigan. They ran into a little bit of that this year because they're on the short end of the Big Ten Conference for home
Barca,
games.
how does that happen?
And,
how if you're the Michigan AD that you have 6 home games on your schedule? That's administrative malpractice. Like, you should be fired for that. That's a lot of money you're leaving on the table. You should be fired for that. Period.
As the Mad Men meme says,
it's
not good, Bob.
You got to be thinking ahead. I mean, maybe some home and homes didn't work out the way. Maybe you had somebody cancel. I don't know, but you could get out of it now. You could get a 7th game right now. Just like, hey, I'm out. I'm going to go pay Eastern Michigan to come in here for $1.5 million, $2 million. You're still going to make money.
What happened to Michigan is these conferences have expanded. And so now they're on a 9-game Big Ten schedule, which means one year you get 5 home games, and the next year you get 4 home games for conferences. So that's 9 of your 12 games. So then you got 3 non-cons. Well, they're in the short end of the stick with 4 home games this year for conference games. And then they've got 2 non-cons, so that's 6. But that 7th one, guess where they're going? An SEC school, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I'd be trying to get out of that one, dude. I'd be trying to get out of that one,
So again, this is where ADs now are going to have to step in from the business model of things and just saying like, hey, we can't afford to be in a situation where we're going to have less football games, because football event game days is one of the biggest drivers for revenues in college sports, from concessions to parking to everything, merchandise. So especially at a place like Michigan, the big house, 100,000 people.
For you to be leaving that kind of money on the table, it really is a fireable offense to me. I mean, that should not happen. It should not happen at all.
But the people that are going to be paying for it is we know who's going to be feeling the brunt of that. And they've already come out and said it, 10% of the staff. And so you've got scheduling, you've got reassessing road travel expenses. Do we really need to have sometimes charter flights or, just these sleeper type buses or whatever it might be for all of, say you've got 15 to 30 varsity sports, whatever it is. So I think ADs are going to start looking into those to where they can make some cuts. We mentioned it before, Olympic teams taking trips. Heck, they were fun. I got to take a trip to Africa with student athletes during my time in college sports. And I've seen them go to Europe and all, just about every continent in the world, right? And so that's great for bonding, as we said earlier, but what is that doing to the bottom line? And I think one thing that you brought up too, which is a major, major issue, and who knows how fixable it is, but probably the biggest expense at a lot of these Power 5 schools outside of facilities is the salaries they're paying for fired coaches.
It's incredible. It's just so much money. And you see it every year. I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to fix it. There has to be a way to fix it. And it's just, to me, for years, I think athletic departments have just been naive to how the contracts work. I mean, who's negotiating these contracts for the athletic department? I mean, I should know. I don't know. But I know there was nobody on our staff that knew about contracts. I mean, they may know a little bit about it, but they don't know all of it. It's almost like you need to have a former agent or some sort of go to Jimmy Sexton's office and hire his assistant or his paralegal or something to come in there and, all right, this is my associate AD for contracts. So we're going to look at every damn contract that we have, and we're going to make sure that we're not paying a $30 million buyout to a coach that goes 10-25. So we're not going to do it. Or are we going to extend a coach because they had a 500 record? Like, when you're competing against yourself in some of these extensions is what you're doing, you just set your department back years. I mean, we've seen big time college athletic departments have to pay coaches, lots of coaches, to not coach, and it's hurt everything. It's hurt their bottom line. It's hurt their attendance. It's hurt their record on the field. It's just, you have to be better with hiring, and you have to be better with contracts. I mean, that's just all there needs to be said. I mean, every year in March, there's 10, 20, 30, $40 million getting paid to people to not work. And I just don't think that can happen anymore.
Yeah, it's gotten out of control in college sports, and the coaches have really ruled the roost. And, that's, again, a tough spot for ADs to be in, because potentially an AD's job and livelihood really depends on the success of the coach, and they're kind of two hand in hand. And so coaches have, they're in high pressure positions. Coaches are getting replaced a lot quicker than when we were kids. A lot of them aren't getting 5 years to work things out and build things. They want to win now, and there's a lot of pressure. And so, I get why coaches are asking for more in that situation, but we're still in something. We've talked about it with conference commissioners. We talked about it with ADs. We talk about it now with head coaches. Just about in any business, there's always this power, this power, tug of war power thing, and every person's going to do what's best for themselves. And that's just the nature of
humans
things in life.
It's just
but
humans.
Something's got to give.
Yeah.
Something's got to give. Someone's got to let go of that rope. But I think if we, this is a fun part. We discussed some ways and thrown out some ideas, but hey, let's get crazy for a second. Let's just get crazy. Let's figure out how to generate new revenue streams. More than just nickel and diming the smaller departmental jobs. Let's talk about this. I think first on our list is we know who we're making a call to. We're calling up some of those Saudi princes.
We are.
And you know what we're doing? Let's take a step back for a second. Do you know how much in the last 2 years 2 major pro franchises have sold for? Let's look at the Washington Commanders, I think in 2023. Let's look at the Boston Celtics in the last year. How much do you think they sold for?
The Celtics sold for over $6 billion. I'm not. Both of them did.
Both of them.
Okay, I didn't know what the Washington number was.
$6 billion. What's the one thing missing from all of these? Let's look at college football. I mean, we can even look down the list on the value and worth of teams. I can even look at MLS, a league that's near and dear to my heart as well. I can look at LAFC and see, that franchise right now is valued at $1.25 billion. And you've seen a lot of these players. If I'm an owner of an NFL team, there's only 32 of us, and most of those get handed down generation to generation within the family. Heck, we're seeing it just happen right now with the Colts. We've seen it here locally with the Titans. So that elite ownership doesn't just happen. It's extremely rare. And so you have a lot of these bigger names. Think of Patrick Mahomes or Kevin Durant or Reese Witherspoon that have invested into these sort of more affordable middle-level leagues, just right under those 4 major professional sports divisions. That's what they start to invest in. But think about this. So now you have all of these Power 5 schools in football. There's an opportunity to become a majority owner. What do you think Texas football goes for on the open market? What do you think Alabama football goes for on the open market? I mean, at some point, we don't know where all of this is going, but if it breaks out into its own superpower conference or whatever with the Big Ten and the SEC, I think we're leaning towards ownerships. This is a lot of opportunity that's going to come for all of these billionaires, a select and few, to be able to be like, I'm the owner of Texas football.
Crazy. Matthew McConaughey's like, all right, I'm in for half, or I'm in on a third. I'll pay, 400 million, or figure out how to get 400 million. No, seriously, it is a Barca. We've talked offline about this. I think these departments are going to be looking for any kind of money they can get. I just read something today about private equity. There's a couple of programs that are going to dive into the private equity thing. You're going to see that. But you're right. I mean, just think about what if LAFC sold for 1.25, or their valuation is 1.25 billion. I mean, Alabama football has 3 times as many people come to their games every time. They have, I don't know, 100 times the following, and the TV ratings are like 15 to 20 times more than LAFC. So there's a lot of value in these programs. Like, what are we doing? If I'm the president of Alabama, I'm just looking around like, let's figure out a way to sell this. I'll license everything to you guys. You can have the logos. You can have the elephant. You can have all that. But I want the $2 billion. And then we'll figure everything else out from there. It makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think anything's on the table right now. I really do. If you're looking for private equity and all that other stuff, I mean, I think anything is on the table. It's awesome. I think it's awesome.
Somebody out there is going to want to own Ohio State football.
Yeah. Someone is going to want to own it.
Someone's going to want to own Georgia football. And you know what? There are also going to be some minority owners, not just majority owners. And I think
someone's going to want to own the whole league. Someone's going to want to they're going to want to own 30 of these guys.
Well, that's like the Live Tour or any of these things on if it then forms the power conference where this super conference where these leagues just decide to branch out on their own.
Someone's going to come in like, I want it all. I want Ohio State. I want Florida. I want Georgia. I don't want Vanderbilt. I don't want Duke. I don't want Northwestern. Like, I don't want schools that don't matter. Really, the ones that don't make any revenue, I don't want. I just want the brands. Bring me the brands, and I will pay for it.
That brings up, say, a school like Northwestern, maybe not them specifically, but from the academia side, the university side, at what point are we going to do any of these schools just say, you know what? This isn't worth it anymore. This isn't worth it anymore. Let's go back to the heart of college sports. Now, granted, that means basically foregoing these major payments for TV contracts and through the league and stuff like that. But you never know with some of these university presidents. Now, making a decision like that is really going to affect your base of donors and fans and alumni that might be extremely pissed off if something like that were to happen. But I wouldn't be surprised to see some one-off cases.
Yeah, but if a Saudi prince, the Iron Sheik, comes in and buys everything, buys all these big programs in the Big Ten, that $70-80 million a year, they're not getting that anymore. What if they start getting 20?
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, now I have to make a decision. What do I want to do? Do I want to keep funding all of this stuff? What if it gets to the point where they're just like, you know what? This is just not for $20 million. I'm paying $20 million and I'm basically not getting the TV money I was getting. I think you'll have a lot of teams get out, or they'll make a consortium with 40 other schools. Like, hey, this is the way we want to do it. These are the rules. Go back to the old model or figure out a new model. But we just can't compete with, we can't compete with Ohio State, can't compete with Alabama. We just can't do it. All the TV contracts, the SEC contract is up in 2036 with ESPN. And the Big Ten is kind of staggered. But, I mean, if I were Sankey, I'd be a little bit wary about re-signing with ESPN again. I would be thinking long and hard about what that's going to look like.
Might be thinking about, why did we sign an extension through 36?
I mean,
the times are changing so much, it's really hard to predict those things. And again, he's fighting the battle of trying to keep the conference. We see the Pac-12 basically fold. It's a lot of these other conferences fold. And so it's hard. It's a tough decision. We talked about earlier about the school local here in Nashville.
Yep.
Things are,
Yeah. I mean, I understand you'd want to have the stability to have that money, like you didn't know people were going to be cord cutting in 2000 but Big Ten is like, we're going to extend it to like 2030, then we'll renegotiate. It's smart. It's what the NFL does. They don't have windows longer than 3 or 4 years because they know the value of their product is going to keep going up. So Sankey's hands are tied right now. There's not really a way. I mean, that's why he had to expand with Oklahoma and Texas to try to get more money from them. They did, but at what price to the sport? And they were just chasing more money because they're locked into this TV deal that is good and their ratings are great, but it's a steal for ESPN. An absolute steal. They get all this programming on Saturdays in the fall from noon to Noon to midnight is SEC football. That's a good deal for them. I don't know. I think this stuff could go off the rails. I'm here for it, honestly. I really am. I'm here for it. I hope it does. I hope it does.
Well, this isn't the long-term fix. What do we say? This is just a quick fix and another change in the wild, wild west. And some people think it might, at least from the AD or coach perspective, they wanted a little bit more, some more boundaries, I guess, and more regulations and limits. But this is only the beginning. And I'm going to use a term that I saw a esteemed journalist who also worked at the Tennessee and here back in the day, wrote a bunch of books. Jeff Pearlman said, blood money that's out there that these teams or influencers or media personalities are taking. And, I think it's a good point with academia, and is at what point are they going to be like, you know what, we want our kids here to be students, and you're going to have some that want them to be athletes. I mean, the way everything's swung right now is this isn't amateur sports anymore, at least in the Power 5 level, and these kids are professionals. And so really curious to see how all that shakes out. And going back to blood money, let me ask you this. When you watch NFL and NBA right now, I remember back when I was a kid, and the only place that I would ever hear gambling odds on TV was a CBS football pregame show with
Jimmy
Brent
the Greek,
Musburger and Jimmy the Greek. That's where we had like pick'em and odds and all that stuff. But not until about the past 10 years has everything shifted. You turn on NFL games now, NBA games now. If you want to call gambling money, blood money, that's fine, however you want to determine it. But it's everywhere. And I loosely equate it to, what cigarettes were back in the 80s and how they funded a lot of things in our country. And that's changed. And so now gambling is the big dog. You're seeing a lot of these leagues, in addition to TV revenue, they've basically sold everything they've had for gambling's on everything. Every NBA pregame show, there's FanDuel or DraftKings or NFL. It's like all over the place. So at what point are we going to see college athletics just
sell out?
Just be like, maybe these conference overseeing, like, you know what? We are all DraftKings. We are all FanDuel, whoever it is. We are all BetMGM.
Yeah.
That money is sitting there. And that's why we go back to the team ownership. There is money in areas that is sitting in certain places, and someone's going to make a move for them. Whether it's ethical or not on the college level, it will happen. I mean, we look back to the SEC, back when we worked in the SEC early on, where they weren't allowed at these Southern schools to sell alcohol at events. That's changed. That's a revenue driver. But once you start getting into like gambling money, that's a whole different ball game.
I think it's going to happen though. I think they're chasing money. Somebody once told me, once you start chasing money, you'll never stop. And I don't think you're ever going to stop. I think they're going to have a big play on it. And that kind of gets me into somewhat of a topic of what these leagues are doing or not doing. And they don't capitalize on having all of these brands in their portfolio to go. Every school's got their own deals, but you could call Florida and be like, hey, when is your phone deal up with AT&T? I got Verizon that wants to sponsor our whole league, and they're going to pay us a lot of money. When is it up? When's Georgia? When's your deal up with? When's your deal up with your telecom provider? At the end of the day, I think those are kind of deals that the league needs. They need to start doing stuff. They need to start making some of these deals and at least start thinking about them.
Treat it like pro sports.
They do.
And how they do it.
You need to take the NFL model and just go capitalize on all this. You're sitting, like we talked about, you're sitting on a gold mine with these brands. I mean, if you sold the top 20 brands in America, if you sold them, it'd be over $20 billion. I think each would be worth $1 billion at least. And so you're sitting on all this, and you're like selling ads to our local potato chip maker, who I love, by the way. Golden Flake. Or you're selling ads for a local bank that's based in your area. They're the bank of the league, but they're not the bank of all 16 teams. That's what you need to be going for. That's where the money is. You have to start treating it like a business, man. Like all this stuff. I think if the gambling deals are on the table, if DraftKings comes to the SEC or Big Ten's, like, hey, we're going to pay you, I don't even know what the money would be, $100 million a year to be, DraftKings to be the official provider for the Big Ten. Man, you got to look at that. These places need money, at least until they get on their feet.
Sell your souls.
This is what they've done.
Everywhere you go, we see places that are now building sports books right outside stadiums or a part of stadiums.
Yeah.
And so there's no real turning back on it. And I don't want to get into the ethical side of it because, there is some deeper combos on that. But, when it still comes down to it, where's the money going to come from? How are we going to stay relevant? How are we going to stay on top of the hill? So Saudi princes, blood money from gambling companies, those are two ways to look at it. I'm sure that these commissioners and ADs are sitting at the table, and they have to be having some of these conversations because, again, these smaller staff positions are drop in the bucket. Again, a lot, as I said in the very first episode, and we're all just a name on a spreadsheet. And unfortunately, that's how it is. And a lot of those cuts are going to start happening this year, and they're going to start happening soon.
I don't want them to happen, Barca, but I am kind of excited to see the business side kind of come into it. Like I'm kind of over people being in power because people think they should be in power and not people who deserve to be in power. And in business, and granted, a lot of businesses make mistakes with their CEOs, but you actually have an agenda now. Your agenda is to win, obviously, but it's also to generate as much money as you possibly can. That needs to be the number one agenda. And that's really what it's come down to. For years and years and years and years and years, we didn't pay kids to play. We gave them gear. We gave them shoes. We paid for their meals. We gave them scholarships. Well, you were also drawing 110,000 people to a stadium paying $50, $100 a pop. You're going to have to go get it now. You're going to have to act different. And I'm excited about that part. I'm excited about the fact that maybe things will be a little bit different on campuses now. I think if you don't, I think you're going to get left behind, and then you're left holding a really big bag, maybe left holding $500 million in facilities that you're playing like local teams in. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I could definitely see that. So you have to be smart and you have to be proactive about getting revenue into your department.
To my ears right now.
It's time for our final segment, Up to Our Ears. And judging by the look on Barca's face, I'm grabbing some popcorn and watching him implode.
Another gentle reminder, if you're sensitive to language, like they say in the movie Old School, earmuffs. So, an NFL team posted a job last week, Director of Social Media. I scroll past the usual corporate jargon. Strategic vision, check. Digital innovation, check. Cross-functional collaboration, check, check, check. So I continue reading to get to the experience area. 7 to 10 years required. That sounds good. That's ideal. Makes sense. Fine. But then there's this last line. Willingness to work weekends, nights, and game days because fans don't clock out. Really? Let's just cut the shit here. This is a director role. It's not an internship. If you've got 7 to 10 years in the industry, you've already auctioned off your soul. You've missed holidays. You know what the job takes. Don't insult us with this description in that line. Don't weaponize the fandom. Don't romanticize burnout. Just say the quiet part out loud. You'll work 24/7, have no boundaries, and smile while doing it, or we'll replace you with someone who will. Because that's what this is. Another reminder in sports, passion isn't rewarded, it's exploited. And while we're here, fans do in fact clock out. They go home, they turn off the TV, they check out when the team sucks. And for this specific team, let's be real, they've had plenty experience with losing. You know who doesn't get to clock out? The underpaid staffer is stuck in the group chat, too afraid to take PTO. This job doesn't come with a cape. It comes with burnout, anxiety, and a lanyard you're too tired to take off at the end of the night. So yeah, I saw that line and remembered, right, this is sports. But that's not the inspiration. It's a warning label. And the sickest part, we've all gotten so used to this. We scroll past lines like that and barely blink. Not this time. Get the fuck out of here with this.
Were they trying to be cute? Were they trying to be cute?
That's all I got on this one.
With that, like, what's the point of doing that? I don't understand.
Hey, look, I'm cherry picking lines. It's the very last line of a job description that I was reading through. And I saw that and I'm just like, fans don't clock out. Like, what are we promoting here? What are we doing here? I know we want to get cute with certain things and make it sound like, hey, you know what? There's a lot more to this job than you think. 7 to 10 years experience, you know the drill by now. You know the drill. This isn't some internship. This isn't some entry-level job. You've been doing this shit for fucking years, man.
Yeah.
So let's just remove that one cute line. No harm, no foul. But let's not fantasize about what that is. It's like, you know what? Our fans don't clock out. And basically, you're not saying this, but you are. Your workers don't clock out either.
That's bullshit. Yeah. They probably,
Fuck outta
they
here.
didn't list the salary. Oh, they did?
Oh, they listed it.
What was it?
It's 100
okay.
to 120K, but it's basically one of the largest markets of the country.
So you can't live on that by yourself.
So you'd have a hard time. If you're in the Big Apple.
Just sleep in your office anyway,
probably
Brady. You have a cot underneath your desk. That's what they want you to do.
Because the
They don't
fans
sleep, so you don't sleep either.
They
You
don't log
clock
out.
So they don't clock out, so you don't. I can't believe it. I mean, I can, but
I mean, I just, again, me cherry picking and probably didn't mean what it meant, but I'm like, are we putting that line in there? Is someone sitting in that chair high enough up that feels like they have to mansplain that to us all?
yeah, that I'm surprised that went through HR. That would never go through HR at any of the places I've been.
Time to wrap it up.
And that's another edition of No Longer Credentialed. Thanks to all of you listening, and if you like it, tell a friend and give it a 5-star rating on your podcast app of choice. Before we sign off, Barca, anything you want to plug?
Well, Boggsy, I'm going to be on this podcast again next
Anything
Tuesday.
else, though?
No. I mean, I speak to you like every day, every damn day right now. You know I have nothing going on. I watch the sun go up. I watch the moon go down. That's my life right now. What else am I going to promote? I mean, I'm still having these chest pains thinking about preparing for National Signing Day. What am I going to plug right now? What do you want to plug?
I'm going on vacation this month.
Oh, Jesus. You are just pouring salt on the wound right now, my friend.
And it's going to be coming hard and heavy, the salt. Don't forget to check us out on social media at NLC Pod on X, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We'd love to hear from you. Until next week, keep grinding.
Yeah, Brad. What's this